What's going on, boxing fans? Julian Williams here at the distance. I got a video for you guys to talk about some recent news. Carl Froch is injured, has a back injury, is forced to pull out of his matchup against Arthur Abraham for the Super 6 tournament. Match was supposed to take place on October the 2nd. Unfortunately, it's not taking place on that date. I believe it's going to be postponed to either late November, early December, possibly, because he's going to need to miss a few weeks due to a back injury. So now is another blow in this tournament. And I did make a video last week, but it didn't post on here, about the belt situation with the WBC approving Durrell versus Ward to be a championship matchup. And in actuality, I believe that Carl Froch versus Arthur Abraham should be the championship matchup of the tournament, due to the fact that Carl Froch is the former champion and Arthur Abraham is the only fighter in the tournament that has not fought for a belt yet. So I think that that fight should be for the WBC Super Middleweight Championship. And another factor that should determine that fight to be for a championship is the fact that Andre Ward already holds a belt for another organization, the WBA. So I just personally thought that that matchup should have been for the WBC Super Middleweight Championship. And Ward, if Ward's belt gets dropped, then we could very likely see the matchup for a championship. But I don't think that that title will be vacated. But it is what it is. But with a tournament like this, with 6 men fighting each other and fighting the best in the division back to back, I hate to see injuries such as these postpone all kinds of fights. When you put the Super 6 on paper and you look at all the fighters in the tournament, and you look at the schedule, because they weren't fight. It's not like they were fighting like every 3-4 months. It's like every 6 months, to be quite honest. Is how it's been done recently, with the fights being postponed and stuff. It's been basically every 6 months for the fights, and now we're having things like trouble with the venues, trouble with venues and injuries, being practically the main issue in this tournament. That's becoming pretty much a problem in a way. I think before you have before you have a tournament like this, I think these are things that should have been outlined and talked about with the tournament. With a fighter in a specific position, the champion gets to fight in his hometown, or two fighters that don't hold the belt, fight in a neutral area or a neutral place. And I just think that should have been outlined before the tournament even started. But we're seeing issues such as these, fights, fighters arguing over, complaining about where they're gonna fight, and scheduling conflicts, injuries, things like that are really getting in the way of things with the tournament. And now, we had Jermaine Taylor pull out in January, and now Alan Green fought for one fight, and basically he's out of the tournament basically. And other than that, the WBC approving a matchup with a man who already has a championship to fight for their belt. Things such as that. I think something that's, I guess, a bit of a problem is the politics that are involved on the outside of things. Fighters who, and it's funny because all these promoters, I believe they're all with different promoters. They all agreed to have their fighters fight in this tournament. And there's some people saying, legacy is involved with this tournament. I wouldn't say necessarily legacy is involved in this tournament. I think more so who's going to come out, whoever comes out on top will be boxing's next big star. Especially in the super middleweight division, because you have a lot of young fighters coming up. But this fight, Arthur Abraham versus Carl Froch. I think it's one me. Before the tournament happened, I think I wrote that that's the fight I wanted to see the most. I wanted to see Arthur Abraham versus Carl Froch the most. I've been saying for a while that's the fight I want to see. I've been saying, I want to see Darrell versus Ward. These are just fights I just simply want to see myself as a fan. And now we're close to the fight, and now it gets pushed back weeks before the fight's gonna happen, and it looks like this would be the only fight that was like set in stone, that was definitely gonna happen. Everything was figured out and hammered out, and now this happens. But it's expected in a tournament like this, I'm guessing. But remember years ago when fighters were fighting, and fighters were fighting the top contenders back to back multiple times throughout the year, and it just seems as if a lot of fighters in these times just can't keep up with that pace of fighting frequently, or hell, fighting every 6 months. These guys have only fought and I understand that injuries happen. Injuries happen in sports, but in a tournament such as this, I guess it should have been expected. So anyway, guys, that's just my thoughts on that. But that was the distance. Thanks for watching. Peace.